Hello, everybody. This is Vivica from the Nourish Caveman and the Healing Foods Method. And I am here today to talk about a very interesting topic, the topic of coffee. A lot of you, a lot of us have a controversial relationship with coffee. It's a love and hate relationship sometimes it's just a love and love relationship, and sometimes it tends to go towards a bit of a dysfunctional relationship. So today I'm going to talk about several points why I have to love coffee from a distance, meaning I cannot indulge in coffee itself as a caffeinated beverage. I'm also going to talk at the end of the video about my preference when I do want some caffeine in my life. What do I do, and what kind of drinks I prefer and the benefits of those. But today I'm going to touch on some very important and interesting points in the relationship with coffee and your adrenals, number one. Then we're going to talk about adrenals, stress, and anxiety, coffee and anxiety. And then we're going to talk about acidity in coffee and what it does to the body. And we're going to talk about molds as the last point. So first of all, what is the effect of coffee? What's the magic in that cup of coffee that will do what you love so much? Well, coffee actually releases stress hormones. It triggers the release of cortisol and adrenaline, and it also in your brain impedes the effect of adenosine, which is a signaling molecule that triggers certain receptors to start making you feel tired. So caffeine actually goes into the adenosine receptors and occupies them so that you do not feel that trigger of tiredness. That's why it keeps you up at night. And we'll talk about a little bit more in a second about additional effects of why coffee keeps you awake and actually affects your sleep, which is very important, especially for those of us who already have issues with sleep due to either high stress or like imbalanced hormones like perimenopause or menopause. A lot of my patients experience problems with their sleep, and that is due to the fact of changing hormones. But let's start with adrenals. So what happens when you drink a cup of coffee is that it starts secreting cortisol and adrenaline. So basically it puts you into a fight or flight mode. What happens when this fight or flight mode is already present, and due to our daily stressors and high chronic stress, we are constantly put in this survival mode, fight or flight mode. You're always on edge, you're always under stress. And then we had coffee. It's a vicious circle is created because we are tired and we are under stress. The adrenals keep secreting cortisol, pumping out that cortisol, which keeps you going, but at the same time, it eventually exhausts your adrenals and lowers your energy. So to the point where you are tired all the time. What is adrenal fatigue defined by nutrition is tiredness not relieved by sleep. So that's exactly it. You wake up in the morning and you're exhausted, and then you really need that cup of coffee. I don't have a mug here, but I should have brought a mug. So you really need a cup of coffee to get you going. But that cup of coffee just like squeezes out your adrenal glands for some cortisol, which should naturally spike in the morning to get you that jump out of bed energetic effect. And instead, your adrenals are so tired that when you get up in the morning, they're not even able to produce a regular spike of hormone. And you need that coffee to produce that. But this is something that happens in the morning, especially when you are waking up and the first thing you do, you need to reach for that coffee. It has become a popular culture to not function without coffee. There are t-shirts, there are mugs, there are advertising everywhere. Coffee lovers, don't talk to me until I have my cup of joe. It's become the norm in our society. But if you think about it, now we can learn about the really bad things that are actually under, behind the veil, like what's really happening in your body and why that is happening. So we know that when you wake up in the morning and you're exhausted, that is a sign of adrenal fatigue. Sleep did not make it better, so you need that cup of coffee. So let's go and have a quick look at what happens when you drink that coffee first thing in the morning on an empty stomach, because that will tie us excuse me, to the second point, which is acidity. And we have to come back to anxiety as well. They're all intertwined together. So it's really important to understand these different functions, because we can't separate the biology, the physiology of the body into drawers, into compartments. Everything functions together. So there are multiple effects with the coffee. So you drink the cup of coffee on an empty stomach, and the first thing it does is it adds acidity to your stomach that is already receiving the food and prepping acid, hydrochloric acid, to digest that food. So we add the hydrochloric acid to the coffee acid, and we make one big acidic environment. What that does, it impairs your digestion. It will easily give you reflux because it triggers your valves and let your valve from the stomach to your esophagus not close properly. So there is a much easier occurrence of that liquid in your stomach actually sloshing back into your esophagus, which is what reflux actually is. So that is one thing. And then it also kind of triggers this flush of hydrochloric acid, but then you will not be able to have it ready when you're ready to eat. So you're wasting an acid, a precious acid of your body that is crucial to digestion, to digest a liquid that does not need hydrochloric acid. It has its own acidity. Hydrochloric acid is important to break down proteins into their amino acid components so they can be absorbed. Another really bad thing that happens when you have coffee in the morning with no food is that by fasting in the morning and secreting cortisol and adrenaline, you are blocking your body's ability to produce serotonin. Serotonin is produced in the brain, but is also produced in your gut. And when you don't eat and you're fasting and then you add a stressor on top of it, your serotonin production is impaired. Why is serotonin so important? It's not only a brain chemical that produces a state of well-being and happiness and a good mood and balanced mood, but it also, at the end of the day, converts into melatonin, making you able to go to sleep. So not only the coffee raises your cortisol, so making you more active and energized. Second, remember, it blocks the adenosine so you don't feel tired. And third, it prevents the conversion from serotonin to melatonin. So if you're already having problems sleeping, you will probably have a big problem having a successful, long, good quality night of sleep. Even people that can fall asleep after having coffee throughout the day will not have the same quality of sleep throughout the night if they had caffeine. Now, there is, of course, a threshold of tolerance for that, and this is different for everybody. Some people are slow metabolizers of caffeine, some people medium metabolizers of caffeine, and some people are fast metabolizers of caffeine. What does that mean? It means that if you are drinking coffee in the morning and you're a fast metabolizer, within 3 or 4 hours, you will have the caffeine out of your system, so you will be able to sleep just fine at night. If you're a slow metabolizer, like me, for example, you can have a cup of coffee at 6 a.m. and then comes 10 or 11 at night. That caffeine is still bouncing around in your body, and you are not able to go to sleep at all. That's why my main reason to not have been able to drink coffee is because I'm really slow in metabolizing. What are the factors that determine the metabolism is mostly genetic, and there are also genes in our specific DNA, individual DNA, that you can check for that will tell you if you have difficulties with enzymes that process out the caffeine. So we have certain enzymes that will help us process out that caffeine. It's possible that we will have a genetic mutation or a genetic predisposition that will make us either a fast or a slow metabolizer, or for some people not able to process caffeine at all. When that mutation is present, we will not be able to tolerate any caffeine. I think I'm pretty much towards that end of the spectrum, as I have a very hard time handling the caffeine from coffee specifically. It's easier with caffeine from other substances like tea, green tea or black tea, or chocolate, which all have some level of caffeine. For me, are easier, but even with chocolate, I have to watch it and I can't have it past like 2 p.m. because otherwise it will keep me awake. Another point to remember, in addition to caffeine, coffee also contains theobromine, which a lot of people are actually sensitive to. So there is an added layer here of problems because you're already, having the stimulant, the caffeine, but theobromine is also a stimulant and is a substance that is easily turns into a sensitivity. So let's talk about anxiety for a second. And, anxiety ties in with adrenal fatigue, and it ties in with that overproduction of cortisol and adrenaline, and also with the ability to metabolize coffee. I would not recommend drinking coffee if you are prone to anxiety. I know that there are techniques where you can train yourself psychologically to harness your anxiety and to use coffee as a positive, beneficial stressor, for example, before exercising, so that you can use that cortisol spike in exercise and fully utilize and burn off the caffeine through the exercise. But that is not for everybody. And a little bit later in this video, I will tell you what is the best way to drink coffee and what coffees are the best to drink. So we talk about acidity, anxiety. Let's talk about molds for a second. Time is ticking, so we need to cover all these different topics. The topic of mold is very controversial because the topic of mold in coffee has become very popular thanks to Dave Asprey and Bulletproof Coffee. And Dave Asprey kind of founded his company and his campaigns on the fact that his coffee is mold-free, while in his opinion and listening to his videos and his posts, it states that about 90% of coffees found commercially contain a high level of mycotoxins. What are mycotoxins? They are toxins related to the presence of mold in a specific food or in a substance, and the mold create these toxins that are then toxic to our body when ingested. There is some research out there that actually disprove Dave Asprey and states that most coffees found in the market these days have been tested, and to pass a certain level of quality, they have to pass the mold mycotoxin test so that they are actually processed in a new way to make the product a superior quality product. There is a lot of competition these days for coffee, so I would imagine that it would make sense as a coffee producer that you want your coffee to be the highest grade, and you would check for evident things like mycotoxins. Now, I would definitely buy organic coffee all the time, and there is a process that is called wet process where the coffee beans are soaked and then dried, and that process, instead of like the dry processing, seemed to be the best way to reduce the mycotoxins and keep them under safe levels. Now, I personally don't know if there are such things as safe levels because mycotoxins can be found in a lot of bulk foods. Luckily, they're less present in keto foods because we find them mostly in things like beans, and they are in cacao beans as well. They can be found in legumes, and they can even be found on fruits, especially fruits that are preserved for a long time, like bananas. So we will want, ideally, we want to try to lower those mycotoxins and the ingestion. So coffee would not be your best choice. And by the way, decaf coffee also has mycotoxins present. There is even a higher presence of aflatoxins in the decaf coffee. So if you want to consume coffee, let's talk about that. What would you do, first of all, if you want to enjoy some coffee? If you do not have adrenal fatigue, if you don't have any autoimmune problems or thyroid problems, and you are sleeping well, your hormones are fine, you're not in perimenopause, you sleep full nights, you find yourself being a fast caffeine metabolizer, so the caffeine is out of your system by the time to go to bed, you don't suffer from anxiety, you work out, let's say you want some extra boost to your workout, so you want to enjoy a cup of coffee. So what would I do if I could do that? I would choose organic coffee, fair trade. That's kind of a given for me. So there are no people exploited in the making of your coffee. And by the way, organic coffee is one of probably the number 2 most sprayed crop in the world. So we want to make sure that we do choose organic. Makes a big difference. Wet processed coffee. And then don't drink it first thing in the morning on an empty stomach. Get up, drink water. I would have at least a quart of water first thing in the morning so that it helps your bowel move. And by the way, coffee also dehydrates you. I forgot to mention that, but it dehydrates you and it takes out minerals from the body. So those are 2 things that are very important to keep in mind, because for those of you who indulge in a couple, 3, 4, 5 cups of coffee a day, you will probably run constantly dehydrated and low in minerals, which also will make your digestive power diminished and you will not be able to digest your food. See how everything is connected. So back to the good way to drink coffee. In the morning, not too late, but after breakfast. And, probably without cream and sugar, because cream and sugar, even though sugar, of course, is not a keto food, coffee is considered an okay keto food. But I do not recommend coffee in my practice to my patients. My patients are mostly women in perimenopause with already enough problems with their hormones, mostly dealing with adrenal fatigue. And they sure are attached to their coffees. And it's like almost an addiction. And for me, it is actually an addiction. And I consider caffeine and coffee an addictive substance. So that's something else that you want to keep in mind. Do you want to be slave to the addiction to coffee? Or do you want to resolve the underlying problems with your adrenals? There is nothing wrong with enjoying that occasional cup of coffee in the morning after breakfast. But be mindful of how your relationship to coffee is going. And I think I covered everything. I don't know if there are any questions at this point. I know there are some of you watching. Thank you so much for joining me here today on this beautiful Thursday. And I hope you enjoyed this information. I hope it was useful to you. If you are watching this video after the live, please feel free. Oh, hi, Renee. Thank you for watching. So good to see you here. If you have any questions after the video, please post them here on YouTube, or I will post this video to Facebook as well. Feel free to join into the conversation. Let me know what is your relationship to coffee, and if you are doing okay with caffeine, how is your sleep going? And do you feel like you need that cup of coffee first thing in the morning? I'm very interested in knowing what is going on with people and how to best help you to resolve your problems. So please follow me here on YouTube. There is a subscribe button if you find this information valuable. Follow my channel. I do videos once a week, live videos here on YouTube or on Facebook, back and forth. So thenourishcaveman.com is my blog, and follow me on Instagram and share with a friend. If you think that your friend is having 15 cups of coffee a day, maybe they need to watch this video. Thank you so much for joining me. You need to quit. Oh, and by the way, last little nugget of value for you. If you quit coffee, being an addictive substance, it will be hard to do. So a good tip in how to quit coffee is two things. One, I would recommend drinking matcha green tea. It has almost the same amount of caffeine as coffee without some of the issues with coffee, and is also a superfood full of antioxidants, so it can help you ease out of the caffeine fix. If you are getting those really nasty headaches of coffee withdrawal, all you need to do is drink 1 tablespoon of brewed coffee, not the powder, the liquid that you brewed, just 1 tablespoon with nothing added. It's kind of an homeopathic remedy because in the very small dose will signal to your body that caffeine and coffee is coming in, so it will relieve that migraine. So do that right away as you start feeling that pounding headache or that migraine coming on from your withdrawal. That will help. And then use green tea to ease you out of the caffeine habit, as you know, and just try to cut back. Sometimes people cut half and half with decaf, and then start reducing your amount gradually and slowly. So good luck with your coffee relationship, and I will see you here next week for another episode of the Keto Q&A. Please ask questions. Those are always welcome, even after the fact. You're very welcome, Janine, and thank you for watching me. See you guys next week. If I knew how to stop this video.